On this page, we're going to review some more information about DNA replication that you learned in the last unit that you still are responsible for knowing in this unit. In the last unit, we talked about different causes of mutations. And remember, a mutation is simply just a change in the base sequence of DNA. We learned that UV light, which is a type of radiation, X-rays, that viruses and heat can cause mutations to DNA. And we also talked about that mistakes during DNA replication, during S phase, can lead to mutations. So replication is one cause of mutations in cells. These mutations can occur because DNA polymerase is matching up DNA nucleotides to the parent strand. So it's adding bases like T and C and G. And in some situations, it'll add the wrong base. So instead of hooking up an A, it adds a nucleotide with cytosine on it. So right here, this is a mismatch in our base pairs, and this could be or lead to a mutation. Now what will eventually happen is an enzyme will come along and find this mismatch. They'll cut out this segment of DNA and replace it, but sometimes it'll replace it with a different base pair. Instead of putting a T and an A back in there, it might put a G and a C, and that means that we've changed the base sequence in this DNA molecule that we're building here compared to the original parent strand. So again, this diagram here is just showing you the same thing. We should have this DNA molecule. When we copy it, we should get two copies, and they should be identical to each other and identical to the original that was there. But we can see that this one inherited a mutation. Now we talked about if certain types of cells get mutations, that can lead to one thing. If a different type of cell in your body gets a mutation, it can lead to something else. And you probably recognize these diagrams. Here we have a cell going through the cell cycle, and it must be a somatic cell because when it splits, we end up with two daughter cells. Whenever the DNA is copying itself in this cell during S phase, if we end up with a mutation, so let's show that we get a mutation in the DNA when we're copying it. Let's kind of put a dot here to represent there's a mutation in that nucleus. And if this daughter cell, when we split up the DNA, gets that mutation, then this daughter cell could become a cancerous cell. So let's put could be cancerous. And again, the reason why is because it has a mutation in its DNA that originated due to replication. So again, you need to remember that mutations in body cells, and the fancy scientific name for body cells is somatic cells, can lead to cancer. My skin cell gets a mutation, I could have a cancerous skin cell. In this next diagram, you can see we have one germ cell splitting into 4 cells. So here are your reproductive cells. These are gametes. Again, these germ cells go through the cell cycle, very similar to body cells. They copy their DNA in S phase. Let's again say that there was a mutation that was introduced due to DNA replication, and this cell gets that mutation. If this is the sperm cell or the egg cell that is involved in fertilization, then you can end up with your child with some kind of genetic condition, let's say with a genetic disease. And this is all because you did not copy your DNA correctly. There was a mistake during DNA replication, and your child then inherits a different form of the gene than what you had. Again, you need to remember that we can call these cells at the end of meiosis reproductive cells or gametes. And you have to remember these terms for the EOC that you have at the end of this semester. This is a repeat from the last unit. There was a diagram similar to this in the last unit. And again, this is just showing you that mutations in body cells can lead to excessive growth of cells, tumor formation, cancer. Mutations that end up in egg cells or sperm cells, those mutations are inheritable. They can be passed on to the next generation. But obviously, if you get a mutation in a skin cell, like right here, you're not going to pass that cell on to the next generation. Your skin cells do not allow you to have children. So therefore, that mutation is a mutation that will not make it into the next generation.